Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Wednesday, September 18th. Today is day 348. I'm still in Seattle on a speaking tour to churches and others. And today, just a reminder that we've been doing these updates every day since October 7th and the attacks by Hamas. Listen to these news updates as an opportunity to be reminded to pray for a permanent, comprehensive ceasefire. Let the news and the things that we're talking about, let it be a reminder that our advocacy is so critically important, every aspect of advocacy. Don't give up hope. Don't allow our hearts to be hardened. As we've been hearing the news about Lebanon, and as I talk about these things, continue on your efforts. Do not give up hope. Media outlets in Lebanon reported a second wave of communication devices exploded today. Wednesday in Beirut, Tyre, other parts of South Lebanon, 20 people were killed, 450 people were injured. So hundreds of additional people were wounded today. The death toll from yesterday rose to 12, including 2 children. 2,700 more people were wounded yesterday. It's reported that about 300 people were in critical condition. When I got this news yesterday, I called my husband. I was sitting in the car. I was coming from one event, going to another, and I just wept. Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah is set to give a public address tomorrow on Thursday. Mossad's spy agency planted small amounts of explosives in about 5,000 Taiwan-branded pagers. The Taiwan agency said they had nothing to do with this. They said that they denied involvement. They said that the pagers were made by a Hungarian firm that it signed a deal with. Senior Lebanese security forces said that the devices had been modified by Israel's spy service at the production level, and they injected the boards inside the devices with explosive materials that then receives a code. It's hard to detect by a device or a scanner. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, his name's Amini, he lost one of his eyes and was severely wounded in his other one during the pager blasts, according to the New York Times. An intelligence breach is what determined that the timing of the explosions. So Israel blew up the pagers yesterday out of concern that Hezbollah might have discovered the secret operation. U.S. officials told Axios it was either use it or lose it, an official said. A former Israeli official planned to use the pagers in a managed plant in Hezbollah's ranks as a surprise open blow in an all-out war to try to cripple Hezbollah. 2 U.S. officials said Israel did not inform Washington in advance. While the exploding pagers seemed to carry the Taiwanese brand, I already shared all that. That's from BBC News. In the last hour, the Jordanian foreign minister said that Jordan says Israel's pushing the Middle East into an abyss of regional war. That's Ayman Safadi, the foreign minister of Jordan. He accused Israel of maintaining a dangerous escalation on several fronts. In remarks after an Islamic and Arab ministerial contact group meeting in Amman to lobby for a ceasefire in Gaza, Safadi said peace would not prevail without a 2-state solution, and he stressed the need for the international community to take practical steps to curb Israeli aggression, including sanctions and stopping the supply of weapons to it. World leaders reacted to the pager attack. Russia's foreign minister said that this was an act of hybrid warfare. Turkish President Erdogan told Lebanon's prime minister that the efforts to stop Israel will continue. Egypt's President Sisi told the United States that it supports Lebanon. All of that was reported by Reuters. The IDF has moved the 98th Division, whose forces have been fighting in Gaza until recently, to the north, following a security cabinet decision to shift more of their military capabilities to the north. And the IDF decided on limited recruitment of reserve personnel to be deployed to the north in case of security escalations, including air defense, Homefront Command said. Hezbollah attempted to assassinate the former Israeli defense minister and IDF chief of staff, Ya'alon, using an explosive device that detonated in Tel Aviv's park last September, so before October 7th. There was, and this was what I was talking about yesterday when I said that the police and Shin Bet actually this didn't happen. They thwarted this assassination attempt. And so some argued that this pager attack, was in response to that thwarted Hezbollah attempt. So all of that happened in Lebanon yesterday and today. And this really could be a turning point. You know, everybody thought it was kind of de-escalating in terms of regional warfare. This could be a turning point in terms of re-escalation on the regional front. The UN General Assembly voted today, this is significant, they voted today to apply the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, on the illegality of Israel's occupation of Palestine. The vote was 124 to 14, with 43 abstaining. Only 14 countries voted against the application of the ICJ's ruling on the occupation. The US, alongside of Israel, was one of them. The US, Israel, Argentina, and Hungary were a handful and a handful of smaller states. Those are the only large states: the US, Israel, Argentina, and Hungary. They have 12 months to end the occupation and the unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory. Israel's ambassador said this is an attempt to destroy Israel through diplomatic terrorism. The US ambassador said that the resolution had a number of flaws. Following the vote, Amnesty International's Secretary General said that this resolution makes crystal clear the 57-year-old occupation cannot be allowed to continue any longer. This started, of course, in 1967. Agnes Callamard is the Secretary General of Amnesty International. She said, for decades, Israel's unlawful occupation has brought injustice, bloodshed, and suffering to Palestinians on a massive scale. And over the last 11 months, the systemic human rights violations are the hallmark of Israel's brutal occupation system of apartheid, and they have drastically intensified. In Gaza, due to obstacles that are hindering humanitarian aid, there's a backlog of health supplies and equipment that continues to grow, while health facilities within the Strip are facing increasingly severe supplies of shortages. The shortages that are being reported are over 70% of the supplies for critical medical items, including consumables, complete blood count kits, and laboratory equipment. I heard a report from a physician who was just there in August who said they have no tubing, so they just reuse it. They have no antiseptic to clean the tubing, so infections are just running rampant. This is a fact to hold on to. The majority of Palestinians in Gaza believe Hamas's decision to attack on October 7th was incorrect. This is a new poll. It was just published by the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research. Reuters wrote an article about this. The majority of Palestinians in Gaza, according to the Palestinian Center for Policy and Survey Research, believe that the October 7th attacks were incorrect. Netanyahu and his aides have been briefing lawmakers Sa'ar on security developments in Gaza and tensions with Hezbollah, even though he does not have the security clearance. Political sources have reported. They suggest the briefings were intended to prevent the collapse of talks between Netanyahu and Sa'ar. This is all about that possibility of whether or not Defense Minister Gallant is going to be replaced. Security sources have said this is highly unusual. They said it's inconceivable that a prime minister is acting with such outrageous irresponsibility for the sake of political deals. Imagine that, Netanyahu's being irresponsible. Who would have thought? Amit Yerushalami, the IDF spotter at the Nahal Oz base. So the spotters were the ones on the Gaza border. So Amit was a woman who was an IDF spotter. She testified before the Civil Commission of Inquiry for October 7th that Hamas increased their training sessions and engaged in disorderly conduct on the border with Israel in the months leading up to the massacre. She said, we sat there for 2 years. We were sure our commanders were listening to us, that they were doing something with the information we were giving them. In light of the outcome, I realized they did not do anything with it. It was only after October 7th we discovered how much they were not listening. In the West Bank, this report is from OSHA, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. 11 Palestinians, including a woman and a child, God have mercy, were killed by Israeli forces between September 10th and 12th in a 2-day operation in Tulkarm and Tubis. 8 were killed by airstrikes in the West Bank. At least 82 Palestinian households, including 360 people, including 161 children, 177 women remain displaced after this 2-day operation in Tulkarm and Tubis, where about 660 housing units were damaged and 58 were rendered uninhabitable. The Israeli Supreme Court ruled in favor of a settler organization placing a Palestinian family of 16 people at imminent risk of displacement from their home in Batan al-Hawa, Silwan, East Jerusalem. 4 households, which is 18 people, were forcibly evicted last month following a ruling in favor of the same organization. There is so much displacement happening, not only in Gaza, all over the West Bank. It's happening right before our eyes. This is literally the definition of ethnic cleansing. On the 18th of September, initial reports indicate that Israeli forces killed and withheld the body of a 17-year-old Palestinian child at an Eileen checkpoint near Ramallah. On the 17th of September, today's the 18th, yesterday was the 17th, initial reports indicated that Israeli forces killed a Palestinian man while attempting to cross the West Bank barrier at Tulkarm. And I just wanted to make sure I did not skip, and I apologize because I do think I skipped this. I do want to also share that the IDF did announce that there were 4 Israeli soldiers that were killed in the last few days. On Tuesday, 4 soldiers were killed in a booby-trapped house in South Gaza. I feel like I didn't mention that. I wanted to continue hostage ceasefire update. Egypt's foreign minister said in a press conference with Blinken visiting Cairo to discuss efforts about a ceasefire that Egypt will not accept any changes to the pre-October 7th rules for the security on its side of the border with Gaza and the operation of the Rafah crossing. This is significant because right now Israel is controlling the Rafah crossing and Egypt is saying, no, we're not going to compromise on this, which is quite significant. President Sisi told Blinken in their meeting yesterday morning that Egypt oppose attempts to escalate the conflict and expand its scope regionally. Israel's High Court of Justice accepted a petition to accept the conditions of confinement at the IDF Sde Taman Detention Center against accepting the conditions of confinement there, which is quite significant because we've heard the conditions of confinement at the Sde Taman Detention Center are abhorrent. So the High Court of Justice ruled that the conditions there were unacceptable. But they said there's no denying that the ongoing war poses many challenges for the state. The point of departure must be emphasized that even in days of such a difficult war, the state must abide by the requirements of the law. Finally, U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders informed Senate colleagues he will soon introduce the joint resolutions of disapproval seeking to block $20 billion of proposed arms sales to Israel from moving forward. The U.S. has to continue arming the ongoing bombing of Gaza. We have to call for a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire. We have to call for de-escalation so that this does not further escalate into a regional war, so that there's not further killing of Palestinians, Israelis, and killing in the broader Middle East. May God go before us in the name of Christ. Amen.